And we're back. Hello, everybody. And we're back for the second segment in Contracting and Business of the Contracting Business Summit. I am so sorry. One of the channels that I'm streaming to was knocked off of the channel. I don't know how it got knocked off the channel. Sorry. But anyway, we're back and in time for the second segment whew, of the Contracting Business Summit. This segment, we're talking about services in demand to the government or in demand with the government. So come back in the room. Come back in the room. Whew. Our guest today, or right now, she's new to the platform. She is a native of Charlotte. She This was a powerful interview. And I mean, she just brought it. And she's going to return to our platform. And I just don't want to wait any longer. Just welcome. I'm sorry. I'm kind of fumbling right now. Welcome to the platform, Miss Christine Edwards, as she talks with us about services in demand with the government. And welcome our guest, Christine Edwards, to Contractors Conversation. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, and I want to thank you for joining us and lending this extra voice to this conversation. And we're talking about the services in demand by the government.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
the government buys some of everything.
Yeah.
you know, a
Yes,
lot of people,
absolutely.
the question I get commonly asked is, what does the government buy? So,
hmm Yeah, I would love to talk about that. So, just to give you some background on who I am and what I do. So, I'm the founder and principal of a consulting firm called Civility Localized. And we focus on community engagement primarily for local and state level governments. So, we are often hired by governments and municipalities to expand their community engagement capacity. And what that looks like is surveys, focus groups, workshops, town hall events, project management, creating a program, from the ground up. Anything that has to do with a community level change that happens, that's what we do. We try to help build trust. And so we were founded in 2018, located in Charlotte, North Carolina. And a little bit kind of a few years into our journey, people started asking, how do you get access to these government contracts and how do you get access to government clients? So in 2020, we started coaching and training and offering opportunities for other small businesses to learn how to gain access to this competitive bidding process, because that's how we get access to our clients, right? So we have developed a training program and it's called Public Sector Payday. And one big part of that training, again, is understanding what services and products the government is going to be more likely to buy. And I will just start by saying that, even all the way up to 2020, there have been record levels of spending from the federal government on down, right? Because it does trickle down, record levels of spending. I think it's over $665 billion that the government
Yes.
has been spending on private goods and vendors. And that could range from anything from food products to office supplies to legal services and even social services.
And
So that's what,
to
yeah.
they're looking to increase their spending with small businesses in particular um, over the next few years. Because I was just reading where the sorry, all the government agencies are looking to increase their spending
Hmm.
with their small business partners. You know,
Hmm.
the Veterans Administration is increased their allocations to 5%. You know, the
Right,
president has written the executive order, asking all the government agencies to increase their targeting
right.
to small businesses and minority businesses. So this is just a timely conversation that we're having right now.
I agree. I agree. I keep hearing about it, with especially with the bipartisan infrastructure law, the American Recovery funding. A lot of that funding has been targeted towards small businesses, which is great. And so what I always tell my clients is stay ready so you don't have to get ready, right? Stay ready so you can gain access to these opportunities when the time is right, because we can talk all day about the funding becoming available, but until
Right.
you see that grant application or that RFP, how do you know that you are ready to go after an opportunity like that and seize the day, right? Seize that opportunity and make it work for you.
I'm glad you brought that up because that is a conversation that's not held enough.
Mm,
We see a lot of talk about crafting the perfect proposal. Okay, that's nice, but are you ready to do the work?
mhm. Mhm.
And are your services ready to
Right.
do the work? It's different servicing one or two clients than it
Right.
is servicing the government. It's a little different.
Yes, I
It's a
agree with
little
you.
response. And I'm not
Yeah.
trying to, and when we have these conversations, people tend to get a little overwhelmed. So I want people to take a deep breath. I'm not trying to overwhelm you, but it's a
Mhm.
different mindset. And we want people to walk in this saying the government is the one of the largest clients you will have.
Mhm.
And we want you to be prepared to service that client. So what does it look like to service a government client?
Yeah, so let's talk about it. So, depending on what kind of products and services that you offer, serving the government, it could look different in terms of the scale and the capacity. So, I have three different categories of goods and services that I organize that government spending, right? Or buying. So that first category is goods, products. That could be technology and devices, laptops, hardware. It could be any kind of device that they're going to be purchasing in bulk. um, and then you also have, for example, hauling, dumping, porta-johns, office supplies, stationery, branded materials, right? Like promotional materials, custom printing, some health and beauty items or toiletry items. Then, of course, you have food and produce. So that is in the goods section. The next sort of section or category that the government is buying is professional services. The government is going to be buying things like public relations, marketing, media services, graphic design, community outreach, which is what I do, catering, strategic planning. Um, what's another one? Information technology, architectural design, interior design, admin services, legal services, anything that's on the professional services that you're going to be selling either by the hour or by a project, right? On a project basis. And then the last and final category is something that I would call social services. And a lot of times people overlook the idea of selling social services to the government because a lot of these are supported by nonprofits. However, the government is mandated to do a lot of these things. So they are going to be hiring vendors to get this done. For example, after school childcare, food and nutrition programs, social service programs that are mandated by the state, like child support collection or tobacco abatement. A lot of times people forget about these things and they can totally be a contract. Even if you are a nonprofit, you could have like a for profit division of your business, right? Or a for profit entity that can go after these opportunities. DEI coaching, things like that. So those are the three categories. You got goods, you got professional services, and you got social services.
You know what? I say this all the time. Nonprofits are government contractors. And
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of contracting opportunities that are earmarked specifically for nonprofits.
Yeah.
And a lot of people kind of like miss that.
Mm-hmm. It'll
And
be a little different. It looks different because it'll say, "Oh, this is a grant," rather than a contract. But nonprofit versus for profit, it's just a different tax status.
I know it's just the or they're looking for the standard 501(c), and there are
Mm-hmm.
so different types of nonprofits beyond that.
True.
So they get kind of lost in the muck when they see something other than the standard. They're looking for a tabby cat and it's something else, and then they kind
Mm-hmm.
of get lost in that. But well, we don't want to get too caught up in the weeds.
Right. 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 I'll give you an example of how you could.
Conversation.
Yes. Yes. You definitely want to broaden that conversation. I'll give you an example of how you could cater your business to a government contract or a government service. Say, for example, you provide janitorial and facility maintenance, and right now you don't have capacity to do a lot, but the level of clients that you have served. You have served a client that has a commercial unit with 10 rooms. That's a big scale, right? So
Yes.
think about some of the government clients or some of the agencies that have government buildings. Maybe it's like the Department of Sanitation or the Department of Transportation in your local community. They have a need for janitorial services. So we're not saying that you have to come in and offer cleaning services to a 12-story building, but there are comparable things that you can do on the government side. Even if you do residential cleaning, right? Even
Yes.
though the scale might be different, you might be able to partner with somebody or subcontract with somebody. If you don't have that experience yet, that's a great way to get your foot in the door.
And I think that's a good point you're making right there.
Hmm.
People look at government contracting as this huge, I need to go after this $2 million contract. And I'm like, well, you do know that there are smaller efforts. You know, the government may have this huge 10-story building. However, they do operate group homes that need cleaning.
True.
So we don't need to jump to the extremes. We
Hmm.
can get in where we fit in and then work our way up. And this is just a perfect way. Now, the government buys services at various level on the spectrum. It's not one end or the other.
Hmm.
It's everywhere. They buy
Hmm.
one Tuesdays and they buy thousands. So we don't have to think of I'm too small or I'm too big. It's
Right.
where do I fit in the spectrum?
That's a good point.
This whole I don't offer anything they sell because the government literally buy clown services. Hello.
Mm, that's true. One of the one of my clients was telling me about how they knew somebody that offers like weaves and wigs. And so
Yeah.
that's the industry that she's in. That's her business, right? She does hair, weaves, and wigs, and braiding hair and things like that, right? And so she was trying to think of how she could get a government contract. And I was like, well, don't lose hope, because if you go and look at a community college, which is a government sponsored agency, right? A community college is state funded. Sometimes they have a need for beauty school, right? Beauty
Mhm.
school, um, hair school, becoming a beautician. Well, they actually need practice wigs and they need mannequins. So why
Yeah.
not partner with somebody? You already have the product, right? And so that was a government contract too. So don't discount what you offer, because the government could need it.
I'll even go here. I was surprised when I first got into contracting, when I first went out on my own,
Mhm.
that cancer research agencies hire beauticians
Mm.
for their participants. They actually buy the wigs for the participants in their clinical
Mhm.
trials. So that's
Mhm.
another government contract. They actually hire that, they contract that out.
Absolutely.
So, like, oh wow. But who would have thought about they actually contract out to beauticians to come in
Mhm.
and do wig fittings for people that go through the cancer research trials?
Absolutely. Yeah. So when it comes to the federal government, a lot of those federal contracts and that federal spending, it goes to the Department of Defense. That defense spending is going to be the higher sort of spending category, but there are a lot of civilian agencies that
Oh yeah.
also receive a lot of funding. And I have this infographic open up on another tab, and I just want to read through some of this. So for example, Department of Health and Human Services spent 400 excuse me 40.7 billion. The Department of Veteran Affairs, right? I think you mentioned that. Department
Yes.
of Yup. Department of Energy, that's another big one that spent over 30 billion dollars in government contracts in 2020 alone. Again, when you watch the news and you watch where some of this legislation is going, it's going towards infrastructure, it's going towards clean energy. So let's say, for example, you're in the construction business and you're noticing that, residential construction might be headed in a different direction. Well, perhaps you can look at public sector construction. Perhaps you can look at clean energy construction, constructing electronic vehicle charging stations. There are so many different ways that you could pivot or really just make your business fit into what the government needs.
And you said something there, and you've said it a couple of times, and I want to touch on that. Being able to pivot.
Mm,
Now, COVID years, I call it the great pivot because it was the companies that were able to pivot on a dime that survived. And the government contracting companies actually thrived during that time because the government never stopped contracting. Excuse me. I
mhm,
don't know why. Every time I go to talk, this frog jumps in my throat. But the workshops that you're holding, that you hold,
mhm,
as a government contract, as you said,
mhm.
but people think about the government workforce needs to be trained. And they're training their workforce through workshops. Now, how did you even start that? How did you even start in government contracting?
Yeah, that's a good question. I love to share this story. So I was working for the county. I was working for my local county government, and I noticed that when I was doing community outreach work, a lot of the community outreach work was being done by marketing agencies. And I felt that two-way communication, real community engagement is two-way, right? It's not just one-way communication. And so in 2018, I started my company and I began looking at different opportunities outside of my county where I could offer community engagement and outreach. And I just happened to I got my hub certification, which is an MBE minority certification. And I was able to subcontract on a park project. So it was just a park in my local community, here in Charlotte, and an out of town engineering company reached out to me and said, "Hey, you're hub certified. We need you to do community outreach for this park project." That's how I got my start, just thinking about ways that I could do things differently, and wanted to make sure, especially in these urban communities and Black communities, that we have people who look like us that are going out and doing the outreach. And so I think I got my start because I kind of saw how much we were charging for consultants, and I figured I could do a good job or a better job, versus what we were offering in house. Um, but yeah, to your point about training, a lot of times we offer leadership training in government, right? Leadership training, diversity, equity, and inclusion training. That's a government contract because they hire these vendors to provide that training.
I love what you did. You saw a need. You said, I'm better than what I'm seeing around here. Let me see how I can get in here. You had
Hmm.
a skill set. You saw how your skill set exceed everything that you saw. You got the certification, not to, because I think now I'm the anti-certification girl, but
Oh,
I'm gonna
I want to hear more
clarify
about
that.
that. Okay.
I'm gonna clarify that statement because a lot of people get certified thinking the certification will cover the sin. If you're not qualified, the certification isn't going to cover that. You took your qualification and said, "Oh, by the way, I'm certified." You didn't say, "I'm certified." Overlook that I'm not qualified. Mm-mm. You were
Hmm.
qualified, saw a
Hmm.
need, added a
Mm.
certification to it, and it made it a no-brainer. And that's what I love that you did. And then you formed a partnership. You took strategy and took strategy and took strategy, and it made it a no-brainer for somebody to
Hmm.
say, let's. And that's what you do when you're contracting. I mean, and that's what a lot of people miss. That's why I had to clarify that when I say I'm anti certification, I'm anti make certification your identity.
Ooh, yeah.
Like,
The certification is not going to fix everything.
no, it doesn't. It's like a whipped cream cake. Who wants whipped cream cake? I'm not going to sit down and eat a whipped cream cake.
Yeah.
No, I want a cake with some icing, yes, but I'm not going to eat a whole cake of icing. No.
Hmm.
And that's what a
Hmm.
lot of people try to do. But you took strategy on strategy on strategy. Find your niche. You're excellent at doing whatever service it is and
Hmm.
find where you fit in, and then you build upon that. And I think that's just so perfect. Now, you see, you offer workshops. What type of workshops do you offer?
So we offer training workshops on how to win government contracts. We also have an ebook. It is called Writing Effective and Compelling Capability Statements. So the workshops are available right now. We're licensing them through a community college small business center. And so I'm delivering those workshops in partnership with the small business center. Um, and I can provide information on how to get signed up for that. It's in person in Charlotte, and it's free, provided through a grant. So the workshop, the training program is called Public Sector Payday, and it is based off of certifications, marketing, and creating a winning contract strategy.
I
But
love
like
that.
Thank
What's
you.
the ebook?
The name of the ebook, did you say what is the name of it?
Yes.
Oh, it's called Writing Effective and Compelling Capability Statements. So the ebook is just for capability statements. I can provide a link to that as well. And it gives you a rundown of why the capability statement is important, what are the key elements that go into a capability statement, how to use it, and it also provides templates. I provide a lot of editable templates that you can edit in Canva. It's very easy to use, so that you can get your capability statement started. A lot of people don't think you need a capability statement anymore, but I
Oh,
definitely
yeah.
think that you
I don't know where this. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I know where it comes from. Your capability statement is your company's resume.
do. Mhm.
So why wouldn't, well, it's like your company's resume. So why
Right.
wouldn't, I don't understand a lot. These overnight gurus are kind of giving out contradictory bad information. And
Mhm.
I have a saying, incomplete conversations lead to bad actions. And I'm here and I'm bringing in people such as yourself to complete the conversations. We're going to offer as much good information and put it out there as we can. So,
Mhm. Absolutely.
all of our, you only work with local Charlotte people, or who do you?
No, I work Good question. No, I work with people all across the country. I work with small business owners in pretty much every industry. It's just that right now the classes are available through the Small Business Center at Central Piedmont. But no, I work with everybody. I'll be happy to send my information. You can find me, at my company, which is called Civility Localized, or I also have a personal brand. It's called Meet Christine .co, where I offer that coaching and I do a newsletter with some different tips and advice as well. So yeah, I would be happy to work with people. I actually like reviewing capability statements. It's like I'm like a career coach, but for government contracts. You
I
know how
love,
people say, send me your resume and I'll look at it. Send me your capability statement. I'll be happy to take a look at it.
and I tell people all the time, what works in a B2B or business to business does not work in the B2G space. You need a
Hmm.
different approach. The rules are different, so
Hmm.
the approach has to be different. So you need that review. You need that different touch when it comes to the government space. So get in touch with Christine. We'll have her information available to you. I'm going to share it with my audience. And you want to remain compliant. I'm your compliance girl, so you're going to hear me say compliance all the time. You want to make sure that you're compliant, you're current, accurate, and complete in everything that you turn in, and you're representing yourself all the time. My when you do branding, everything you present represents your company at all times. I remember bidding on my first contract. I didn't win it the first time, but I won it the second time. And what I remember him saying the most was he remembered my company. It was 5 years later when I recompeted, but he remembered the fact that I bid on the contract the first time. So
Yes.
your reputation in the industry carries.
Yeah,
So
reputation is key.
right.
Yep. Reputation and relationships are so important. Sometimes it helps getting in front of those decision makers multiple times, not even
Yes.
through the competitive process, but whether it be through a pre-proposal meeting or whether it be
Yes.
through a networking event or on LinkedIn, making sure you are in front of people. So yeah, seven times. So usually it takes 7 times for somebody
Mhm.
to remember you, right? Remember you and remember your name.
And it's investing time. It's an investment of time. It's an investment of learning. It's an investment of energy and emotion because,
Mhm.
every win is a yes, and every non-win is a not yet, is what I tell
Mhm.
audience, is a not yet. Just because you don't win
Mhm.
it this time, there's always the next time. But we want to close this out with this. What is the top three things you would advise somebody new to
Mm.
government contracting? Top three pieces of advice that you would give them.
I would say keep track of your work,
Mhm.
which means write it down. You
Yes.
know, if it's something that you did for a volunteer or pro bono, or maybe it was just something that you did for a friend, that counts. Write it down. The second thing would be remove the ego a little bit. Sometimes it takes a little bit less ego in order to be strategic and think about who you can partner with. Sometimes you have to put your ego on the shelf.
Hmm.
Um, and then the third thing would just be keep going. It's not going to
Yeah,
happen overnight.
it really doesn't. I don't know why people think you're going to win everything you submit.
Hmm.
You really don't.
Yeah. It doesn't happen overnight. So I would just say keep going. And that's really for all kind of entrepreneurship, not just government contracts, but whatever you are involved in, just keep going.
Wow. Yes, keep going. I think that is the best way to close out this conversation. It
Mhm.
was a pleasure having you with us on Contractors Conversation. And I am quite sure we're going to have you back to continue the conversation. And that was Christine Edwards in this segment. She just teased a bit. She just summarized and highlighted some services that are key, that are high demand with the government. We're getting ready to take a lunch break. And then we're coming back and we're talking about, I'm inserting, you know what? I'm going to postpone the lunch break. I'm going to run this segment. I'm going to set it up and run this segment about faith in business. There are a lot of us faithpreneurs, as Coach Beverly likes to call it, who are walking this tight line. We don't know exactly how to operate in the business world. And what I'm telling you is you don't have to put down your faith to operate in business. So lean into this conversation that I had with Bishop Clark. It was a powerful, powerful conversation. And we'll be right back with more of Contracting and Business Summit. I am your host, Luciana Turner, and the summit is sponsored by the LT&A Consulting Group. We are the premier source of government contracting and compliance services. We offer services to companies who are seeking to integrate government contracting into their businesses and who understand that compliance is adhering to what you say you're going to do and the rules and regulations who govern your industry. If you need or want to start the year off right, book a session with us and see how we can service you going into the new year. We'll be right back after this brief